It seems like overnight, AI has gone from some sci-fi concept to a tool that students and faculty are using every single day. And look, it's a total game changer. But there's a huge catch. It can produce incredibly confident-sounding nonsense. So this explainer is going to be your guide to using these tools the right way, without getting fooled.
So, what's the deal here? Is this new technology a revolutionary assistant that's going to supercharge learning? Or is it just an unreliable machine that's really good at stringing words together? The answer is, well, it's both. And learning to tell the difference is probably the most important skill you can develop right now.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack that whole convenient or nonsense thing. Then we'll decode the tech in really simple terms, no jargon. After that, I'm going to give you a practical playbook for writing better prompts. We'll cover the one safety check you absolutely have to do, and we'll finish up by talking about how to make sure you're the one in the driver's seat of your own learning. Okay, first up, let's really dig into the two sides of the AI coin. To use it well, we need a really clear-eyed view of what it's great at and where it completely falls apart. On the one hand, these tools are amazing for things like brainstorming ideas, whipping up a quick outline, or just rephrasing a clunky sentence to make it clearer. But on the flip side, the limits are massive. The biggest one is what people call hallucinations, and that's when the AI just makes things up. I mean, facts, quotes, sources, anything, and it presents it all as stone-cold truth. It's also full of biases from its training data, and it doesn't actually think. It just matches patterns.
So now that we've seen the pros and the cons, let's pop the hood and decode the machine a little. Just understanding a few key terms is going to give you a huge advantage in using these tools, and just talking about them with confidence.
First, let's talk about the big umbrella term, generative AI. This is basically any AI that generates new stuff. It's not just fetching information like a search engine, it's literally creating something new based on the patterns it learned from all the data it was trained on. In higher ed, you're mostly going to see this in the form of text-based chat tools. And to get a little more specific, what we're usually dealing with is a large language model, or an LLM. This is a type of generative AI that is hyper-focused on one thing, language. Its entire job is to understand what you're asking, and then generate text that sounds like a human wrote it. Now, this is so important to get. An LLM isn't thinking or understanding the way we do. A much better way to think about it is as a superpowered prediction engine. It's just calculating the most probable next word in a sentence, based on all the patterns it's seen before. This one idea explains everything. It's why it can sound so fluent and persuasive, even when it is completely, totally wrong. All right, here's a quick glossary of terms you'll hear a lot. A prompt, that's easy, it's just what you ask the AI. Bias, that's a systematic skew in what it spits out, and it comes from the data it was trained on. Verification, that's your job. It's the act of checking its claims. The context window is basically its short-term memory, how much info it can juggle in one conversation. And finally, the most important terms for your success, your own judgment and metacognition. That's your ability to spot errors and, crucially, to know whether you truly understand what you're reading. Okay, so we know how it works. Now let's talk about how to make it work for you. This next section is your playbook for writing much more effective prompts to get way better, more useful results. When prompts fail, it's almost always because they're missing two things: context and constraints. This 5-step structure solves that problem. First, give it a role, like you are a writing coach. Then, give it a clear task. Provide the background context it needs to do a good job. And this is so key. Add constraints, like a word count or a specific tone. And finally, you can even ask it to perform a quality check on its own work. So here's what that looks like all put together. The role, you are a writing coach. The task, help me revise. The context, keep my meaning. The constraints, limit to 120 words. And that quality check, list 3 questions a reader might still have. See how much more powerful that is than just typing, make this better? All right, now for what might be the single most important part of this whole explainer, the essential safety check. I want you to think of this like a pilot's pre-flight checklist. It's something you have to run every single time you use AI for any real work. This simple 4-step routine is what keeps you in control and stops those AI hallucinations from ending up in your work. So first, you pinpoint the main factual claim the AI is making. Second, you test it. Can you find that exact same fact in another reliable source? Third, you spot the gaps. What context or information is it leaving out? And finally, you decide. You accept the output, you fix it, or you just throw it out entirely. This is how you use AI as a smart assistant, not a co-author. And speaking of safety, here is a massive reminder. Please, never paste private student data, your own personal information, or any sensitive institutional details into public AI tools. You should always be using tools that are approved by your institution and follow your campus guidelines on data privacy. Okay, this brings us to our final section, staying in the driver's seat. Because with all this incredible new technology, the most important component is still you. Your judgment, your critical thinking, your expertise. That's what makes these tools useful in the first place. An AI is great at producing a polished, clean output in seconds. But that's not where the learning happens. The real deep learning happens in that messy process of thinking and struggling and drafting and revising. The AI can definitely assist that process, but it should never, ever replace it. And really, that's the bottom line. Generative AI can absolutely be a powerful tool to accelerate and deepen your learning, but it only works if you stay firmly in charge. If you're the one directing the tool, questioning its output, and ultimately making the final call. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. As we all move forward with this, how will you personally use these powerful tools, not just for convenience, but in a way that actively strengthens academic integrity and trust instead of weakening it?